And this tournament just continues to get better. What's up, tennis fans? Sleepy Picks here. We had some crazy upsets in the Madrid Masters today. We'll go over our second round recap and take a look at our third round picks for the bottom half of the draw. Let's get started. And here's a look at Felix Auger-Aliassime's quarter. First match we're going to talk about is Tsitsipas against Merida, and what a win for Stefanos Tsitsipas over Bublik. We talked about their head-to-head was 2-0 for Tsitsipas, and apparently that was very telling for us. I thought it was going to be a close match. I had a weird feeling about this match, but I did not think that it was going to be a straight sets win for Tsitsipas. He was the aggressor in the majority of this match, taking it, being able to control most of the points with the forehand, and then being able to take advantage of the Bublik second serve. We saw so many times he was able to just put so much pressure on Bublik's serve, and I assume that must have been a little bit more of a focus from the Tsitsipas camp, considering that he wasn't doing that against Kipson. He really struggled to break Kipson, and here now he's breaking Bublik 3 times. So I think that was something that must have been discussed after that Kipson match, just being a little bit more aggressive on the second serve, and seeing him do that really helped. And it didn't let Bublik get settled in, especially on his serve, where he likes to have kind of some of those cleaner, quicker service games and then put a lot of pressure on the returner himself. Wasn't able to do that today. Tsitsipas advances 6-2, 7-5. He's going to take on Merida, who was able to take out Mute, and this was impressive. I was watching this match, and I was just thinking to myself, why did I pick Mute? Like, it just, this was all Merida all day. I mean, he gets an early break. That definitely, having an early break definitely settles the nerves down when you come out. But this crowd, guys, it felt like they picked up right from the Trunzoliti match. Like, this crowd was so loud in the first point. Just booming with the horns and the whistles. I mean, this is awesome to see from Merida, and it's definitely going to be a raucous atmosphere against Tsitsipas. But Merida able to just use his defense. He was targeting that Mute backhand and really able to just dictate a little bit more with the forehand than Mute was. He had Mute on the defense a lot, and then when he was on the defense himself, he was able to find ways to get back onto offense using both of the ground strokes and his legs and his speed. So extremely good match from Merida. And you got to credit the crowd. You got to give the crowd a little bit of credit there. Just really helping him over the finish line. He seems to be getting the most support out of maybe any of these players. His back-to-back matches where they've just been very, very loud. And now he's going to face Tsitsipas. No head-to-head here for these guys. Tsitsipas coming in, he's 2-2 now on the year. We talked about how he's never had a losing record on clay in his whole career. He's now at 500, so we assumed that there would be a little bit more progression here for Stefanos, and he gets that win against Bublik, beating Kipson in 3 sets the match before. Did have a 3-set loss to Merida in Munich and a straight set loss to Cerundolo in Monte Carlo. Both of those pretty tough fought matches. The Cerundolo match, he did have some opportunities to win a set, which might have changed the momentum of the match. And then the Munich match against Merida, that was a tricky one because it went over 2 days. So Tsitsipas has got to be coming in with a little bit more confidence, especially having taken out Bublik. Merida, on the other hand, came through qualifying, beating Harris and Trunzoliti in straight sets, then getting a rematch with Trunzoliti 48 hours later, beats him in the first round, 7-6 in the third, saving match points. And Mute, he beats in straight sets. Merida is 11-3 on the clay this year, 35-16 the year before, 40-23 the year before that. Tsitsipas, as we mentioned, 2-2 this year, 7-5 last year, 22-6 the year before that. Merida's time on court is around 7 hours and 40 minutes, so that's something that we gotta look at. I mean, guys, honestly, looking at this match, I cannot see how Tsitsipas is going to win this match because Merida plays such solid defense. He's going to make Tsitsipas hit a couple of extra balls. He's going to make him feel those nervy shots. He'll focus on getting his shots to the backhand, and as we've talked about before, the crowd is going to be strongly behind Merida. I do worry there's a couple of things that kind of come to concern first. Number one, Tsitsipas going to have some of the bigger strokes on court. He does have the ability, if he can take the ball early like he was today, he can take time away from Merida and really not let him get comfortable hitting his ground strokes. So we got to look out for that. And then number two, how are the nerves going to be for Merida if he's trying to close out a close match, if we're in a breaker or it's 5-all? Do we trust that Merida is going to be able to kind of push this thing over the top? For me, you look at that record, he's 11-3. He's found ways to win in a lot of these. Makes it out to the Bucharest final. Loses a tough one 7-5 to Navoni. Has some chances, potentially maybe, to get a win there. But for me, this has got to be Merida. I can't trust Tsitsipas just yet. I do see a scenario where he can potentially come out and really rope the ball past Merida. I can see that happening, but in more ways, though, I see Merida being able to use that defense, use the crowd, get the momentum going, and win this one. I'm going to go Merida to advance in straight sets. Next match is Fokina taking on Casper Ruud. Let's talk about that Ruud match first. Against Munar, 6-0, 6-1 win for Casper Ruud. His forehand was clicking, the backhand was clicking. He was able to take time away from Munar. And the one thing we kind of noticed with Munar, yes, he's coming back from some injuries. It's more of like the ability to kind of move around the ball. I felt like he was getting rushed a lot by Ruud. He wasn't anticipating the ball very well. That'll come as he starts to play a few more matches. And then just the speed of the feet, he wasn't able to really move around too well there, and it looked very similar. This Casper Ruud match looked very similar to the Hadar match that Munar played last week. So he's going to need a few more matches to get under his belt to be ready for the French Open and then to be ready for the hardcourt season as well for him. Because I do think he's got it. We saw some decent points from him in this. I know 6-0, 6-1. You're not seeing much good things, but we saw some points where there is some promise. It looked like the Munar of old. So hopefully he's going to be able to kind of get back to 100% here. But he loses to Casper Ruud. Casper Ruud had a very lopsided head-to-head against Munar, and that head-to-head keeps growing. Ruud's going to take on Fokina, who was able to take out Carreño Busta. And we talked about this match, guys. I mean, Carreño Busta, for me, he was just a little too slow, it looked like. And Fokina able to move him around. Davidovich Fokina, he's kind of like death by 1,000 blows. He's not going to come out and sucker punch you with any big shots. He's just going to move you around, chip a little bit at you, and before you know it, you're like, wow, I'm down a break already. Carreño Busta just struggled a lot with the movement today. A lot of the big shots that Fokina was hitting, even up the middle, we saw Carreño Busta struggle to kind of move around the shot to get a good look. So I just think this is. It didn't surprise me that Fokina was able to win this match. He looked the stronger of the two playing today. So looking at this head-to-head here for Fokina and Casper Ruud, it is 3-3 for the two. Not much separating these guys. Let's talk about the last four matches. So they didn't meet in the French Open in 2021. That was a 5-set win for Fokina. But in 2023 they met in Toronto. That was a 3-set win for Fokina, 7-6, 4-6, 7-6 over Casper Ruud. Then they met in 2024 in Miami. Casper Ruud able to win 6-3, 6-4. That was on the hard courts of the outdoor hard courts of Miami. Then they met in the French Open in 2024. And this was a second round match, and it was a five-setter again. 7-6, 1-6, 6-3, 4-6, 6-3 win for Casper Ruud. And then they met in Basel, and Fokina was able to win 7-6, retirement from Casper Ruud. So for me, there's a few things. Obviously, when we start to look at Casper Ruud, there's a few things that always concern me. The number one thing is the unforced error count. I just feel like if he's off, it's very hard for him to win these matches against guys that are equal level, maybe slightly above him. Casper Ruud's coming in. He's 3-1 right now on the clay. 14-5 last year. 24-7 the year before. Has the one win over Munar. And in Monte Carlo, he was able to beat Poprin, Mute, and lost to Felix Auger-Aliassime. Remember, he had that injury that was a little bit of a freak injury. It just kind of snuck up on him, and he had to retire in the middle of that match. Fokina, on the other hand, is 1-0 on the clay. Remember, that Carino-Busta match was his first match on the clay. And Fokina hasn't had that great of a season. He's sitting at 10-7 right now. We kind of been hoping for the year to go a little bit better for Fokina, especially considering he was 44-26 last year, 22-14 on the hard courts. So he does have the potential to maybe have a nice clay season. He was only 9-6 last year. Have a nice clay season and use that to springboard himself into the summer hard courts. So Fokina is 1-0 this year, 9-6 last year, 2-5 the year before. Guys, for me here, I gotta go with Casper Ruud. I know he loves this tournament. He plays very well on the courts. I liked what I saw from Munar. There's not really much, though, that I can glean from that match and say, oh, he looked really good. I mean, Munar just didn't look great. Some errors from him. Balls were just sitting up for Ruud to put away. So it was very tough for me to kind of gauge what type of level we're getting from Ruud. But very nice for Ruud to get through that match pretty quickly. I think this one's going to be a three-setter here. We've seen their head-to-head. All of these matches are very tightly contested between the two. And I think we're going to see another one here. I think it's going to be Casper Ruud to win here. I love the Casper Ruud forehand. I love when he has time to set up and he's able to dictate play. I think we're going to see that a little bit here against Fokina. So give me Casper Ruud to advance in 3 sets. Next match is Cerundolo against Darderi. Francisco Cerundolo able to get through Hanfman. Remember, this was a revenge match for him. He lost previously in the Chile Open to Hanfman, and we saw him come out with a lot of purpose. Now, Hanfman did have a little bit of a wrap. His left calf was taped up. So I think this seemed to be a little bit of a problem when he had to explode out to the left side. When he was just kind of going out, or he was in control, or he was trying to accelerate and hit pace off the backhand side, I didn't see many issues. I was trying to look to see if maybe like him pushing off of it might hurt, but it didn't seem like he was very restrictive there. It was only that ability to kind of take those quick steps out and hit a ball on the run that he struggled with against Cerundolo on that left side. So we'll have to keep an eye on that going into Rome for Hanfman, if maybe that was a injury or maybe something preventative, or he just felt something in the last match and wanted to make sure that he would be okay here. Cerundolo did have I believe it was a 5-3 lead in the second set, and he let that slip away. It started to get a little bit messy here, but he's able to break back and beat Hanfman 6-1, 7-5. So a very nice win for him to get his clay court campaign started in Madrid. And he will face Luciano Darderi. And Darderi beating Juan Manuel Cerundolo, and this was another revenge match. Remember, Darderi lost to Juan Manuel Cerundolo in Rio, and that was right after he had lost to Francisco Cerundolo in Buenos Aires. It was probably no more than 48 hours after. And I kind of talked to you guys a little bit about that one, how I was sure that the Francisco Cerundolo camp is sharing notes with the Juan Manuel Cerundolo camp about Darderi because they came up with a pretty good game plan for Francisco to beat Darderi. So why not just pass it over to Juan Manuel and allow him to kind of analyze and see if he could do the same thing. Plus, that was a very emotional match for Francisco Cerundolo. It was a very hotly contested match. So I felt like Darderi maybe coming in was a little bit more fatigued. Here he was ready to go. Remember, he lost early last week, so he had a little bit of time off to rest the body and get ready to go. And he clearly looked the stronger of the two. Just being able to dictate with his big strokes, and that's something with his heavy shots, and that's something we haven't seen in a long time from Darderi. It's something we've been looking for. So seeing him do that gives you maybe a little bit of promise. And we know against Juan Manuel Cerundolo, you have to be able to do that. If you just try to grind out wins against Juan Manuel Cerundolo, you're probably not going to win many matches. But if you have a shot that you could really use to, one, open up the court, but two, to hit a winner or put him on his back foot, then you're going to have a little bit of success. And Darderi looked pretty good today. The only thing that we just haven't seen from him yet is consistency. Is he going to be consistently good? Looking at the head-to-head here between Francisco Cerundolo and Luciano Darderi, it is 3-2 for Francisco Cerundolo. As we just mentioned, their last meeting coming in Buenos Aires in the finals, where Cerundolo was able to win 6-4, 6-2, and that match really surprised me because I thought it was going to be a little bit closer given each of the players' pass into the final, given how Darderi to me was a much stronger clay quarter at the time. I felt like Cerundolo was iffy on the clay, and for Cerundolo to get out there, won Buenos Aires, his home event, and win that, it was an extremely emotional match for him. Darderi was able, let's go through, actually, all of these have been since 2024, so let's go through all of these matches here because I feel like all of them are relevant. Every single one has been on the clay. So that tells you, these guys are playing a lot of matches on the clay, and they just happen to meet each other in some of the later rounds. Darderi is able to beat Cerundolo in Houston. This was a second round match back in 2024, 6-4, 2-6, 7-6. Very tough match there. Cerundolo gets his revenge in 2025 in Buenos Aires, where he wins 6-4, 6-4 in the first round. Then 1 week later in Rio, Cerundolo plays Darderi in the second round, and he's able to win 6-7, 6-3, 6-2. And we always talk about that revenge factor. You see Darderi's able to get that set. You always know after, if you played a guy the week before, 2 weeks before, and now you're playing them again, most likely it's going to be a much closer match than what you've seen before. I mean, look at Galbis and Baez. Baez rolled Galbis a couple months ago, comes back and loses now to Galbis. In 2025, Darderi is able to beat Cerundolo in Bastad 6-2, 3-6, 7-6. That was in the semifinals, and then the aforementioned win in Buenos Aires in the finals this year, 6-4, 6-2. Francisco Cerundolo is coming in. He's 11-4 on the clay, 21-11 the year last year, and 21-13 the year before. Darderi, on the other hand, is 10-5 on the clay, 30-11 last year, 34-15 the year before. Darderi coming off a loss to Vic Kopchiva in Munich, and Cerundolo coming off a 3-set loss to Alexander Zverev in Munich. For me, there's not much separating these guys. It's kind of funny to see such a lopsided score for Francisco Cerundolo against Darderi. The only concern that I have, actually the biggest concern that I have, is the consistency of Darderi. Are we going to get the Darderi that kind of rolls over like he did last week against Kopchiva? Or are we going to get the Darderi that we remember from last year, who fought every single point tooth and nail to win some grittier matches? Right now, guys, for me, I gotta go with Francisco Cerundolo. I do see this match as being kind of like a coin flip type match, but I like what I saw from Cerundolo against Hampman. Both these guys coming off a revenge win from a loss previously this year. So that's both should be coming in with a little bit more of confidence. But I think Francisco Cerundolo has played pretty well on these courts. Let me just see how he's done here in Madrid. A semifinal last year, a quarterfinal the year before. So he's played pretty well here. He lost to Casper Ruud, the eventual champion, 6-4, 7-5 in the semis last year, and lost to Taylor Fritz in the quarterfinals the year before. Yeah, I gotta go with Cerundolo here. I think that forehand, when it's on, it's really gonna bully Darderi around. I think Cerundolo should be able to gain some confidence from beating Hampman as well in straight sets. That's a solid win for him to get that revenge. So give me Francisco Cerundolo. He's gonna win in straight sets. Final match in this quarter is Blockx against Felix Auger-Aliassime. Felix able to get through Galbus today, and not really much of a match for Felix. His power was just a little bit too much for Galbus to handle, and Felix not really having to really get challenged with the movement on the clay court, and that does concern me a little bit because I think Blockx is really going to be able to do that. Galba's more of a defensive style of play, so Felix was able to use his forehand to dictate. I loved how he was coming into net a lot to finish a lot of these points. I think that's really good on the clay, so you're not caught in like some of these longer grinded out rallies against maybe some of the better clay court grinders on tour. I don't think Felix wants to be in those types of rallies. He wants to find ways to shorten the point up a little bit and win some quicker, more offensive points. So Felix is able to advance 6-3, 6-4 over Galbus. He takes on Alexander Blockx, who had a very tough match against Nakashima. And Blockx able to advance 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. And the one thing I liked about Blockx was, number one, the first set was all on the Nakashima return. Brandon Nakashima able to see the Blockx serve very well, and he was able to put himself on offense off of that serve, whether it was a first serve or second serve. We saw Nakashima able to find some good offense and keep Blockx on the defensive, and there are a lot of tough games for Blockx on the service game, and finally Nakashima is able to break through and get a 6-3 first set. The second set, we saw Blockx start to challenge the movement at Nakashima, which is something that we were talking about. You have to do that against a guy like him. Lerner Tien is also very similar, where once you get them moving around a little bit more on the clay, you really start to see the discomfort that they have playing on this surface. The one thing that I really liked to see from Blockx was how many times he was able to hit behind Nakashima. He was able to pull Nakashima out and then go right behind him again. And that's where the movement really can be exposed. Your ability to change directions quickly on the clay. If you're an experienced clay courter, that comes very easily. But if you're not and you prefer the hard court, it's a little bit tougher to adjust to. So Blockx able to get that 3-set win, 3-6, 6-3, 6-4. He takes on Felix Auger-Aliassime. No head-to-head here for these guys. We got Blockx coming in. He's 7-2 right now on the clay, 4-4 last year, 7-3 the year before. His wins over Christian Garin and Brandon Nakashima, both in 3 sets. That gives him about 4 hours and 10 minutes on court so far this tournament. Blockx did have a tough straight set loss to Shelton last week in Munich. And we talked a little bit about that one. I just felt like that match was slowly turning into Block's favor, and he wasn't able. If he was able to eke out that tiebreak against Ben Shelton, I think he was going to be able to win that in 3. Felix, on the other hand, coming in, he's 3-1 on the clay. He was 3-6 last year, 17-8 the year before. He just got his first clay court win in Madrid over Galbis, and he did have a decent showing in Monte Carlo, beating Cilic, who we know is not very comfortable on the clay, beating Casper Ruud by retirement. That first set was very tightly contested. Casper Ruud having some opportunities to win that set too, and then Casper getting a tough injury in the early stages of the second set, having to retire. And Felix is able to take on Sinner, and he goes 6-3, 6-4, which isn't too shabby. You know, like that's a pretty nice score for given how well Sinner has been playing. For me, guys, I want to go with Blockx here. I do question. There's a couple of things, and it's very similar to Merida. As we go deeper in these stages, when are the nerves going to kick in to where these guys are just missing shots left and right? You know, Blockx with a very offensive style, can play some good defense, but a very offensive style. And when you have those nerves, sometimes your shots are just not dropping in or not going where you want them to. So I'm curious if that part's going to sneak in. And then I do think that the power of Felix is going to be a question for me and how that's going to play out. The problem that I find is Blockx is not going to give Felix a lot of looks on the forehand. He is also not going to let Felix get comfortable standing on top of the baseline, redirecting shots, and playing short balls extremely aggressively. I don't see Blockx allowing Felix to do that. And I still believe in the Blockx movement. I think he's a much better mover than Felix Auger-Aliassime on the clay. And Blockx with good strokes on both sides. The other thing we got to keep an eye out, I know it's only been 4 hours and 10 minutes. However, we got to see how his endurance is here on the clay. I'm going to go with Blockx here. I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win in 3 sets here. So give me Blockx in 3. And here's a look at Auger-Aliassime's quarter. And God, wouldn't it be awesome to get Merida and Blockx in a quarterfinal with a chance to go to a semi? I mean, that would be insane. I kind of have a feeling that this is going to be Casper Ruud getting out here. If he can really find his consistency, which he has been able to do on this surface, then I think I really trust him to go far in this tournament. Having the matchup with either Blockx or Cerundolo will definitely be interesting. I like the way that Blockx is playing. I think he's gaining more and more confidence the deeper he's going into some of these tournaments, so that's really good. But I have to go with the guy who's won the tournament, and that's Casper Ruud. So I think he's going to advance out into the semifinals. And here's a look at Zverev's quarter of the draw. First match we're going to talk about is Medvedev against Budkov Kjaer. And Medvedev able to get through a tough 3-setter against Merida. You know, at the end, just a few too many errors from Merida, but I liked what I saw from him there. And Medvedev, of course, nice win for him, especially to get out of that Monte Carlo losing streak where he lost 0-0 to Berrettini. So nice to put that behind him and get a win here to advance. Budkov Kjaer, I did not get eyes on this match, but seeing that scoreline for him to beat Chapo in straight sets, not only in straights, but 6-2, 6-1 is very impressive. I know one of the things that Chapo's always prone to is getting very down on himself. You know, he's kind of like one of the if it rains, it pours type of guys. So just be careful with him there. If a few things go wrong, or he goes down an early break, we kind of see Chapo close up a little bit. I think it gets a little bit more frustrating for him. But Budkov able to come through here in straights. And this sets up a matchup here. And we've talked a little bit about Budkov from the next gen and him being able to push some of the guys there and get some solid wins. And we just haven't seen the results yet in the main draws of ATP tournaments. And all of a sudden, now we're seeing it very similar to what we saw with Landaluce, with Blockx, with Hadar. These guys are starting to make some dents here, getting solid wins. That win over Shapo, especially in the manner that it was, that win, though, I believe is probably his best win. So we'll have to check that. Yeah, I think he's got at least his best win this year. So very solid for him to see him his game progressing. Budkov comes in. He is 5-3 on the clay, 18-12 last year, 19-5 the year before. Medvedev is 1-1 on the clay, 6-4 last year, 11-5 the year before. And we do remember Medvedev was playing very solid tennis before the clay season, making it out to the finals of Indian Wells and losing to Sinner in 2 breakers. The first set breaker, he really had opportunities to win that. Didn't have an actual set point, I don't think, but had some shots where he could have made some very strong plays to maybe take a set off of Sinner at Indian Wells. This is definitely going to be a step-up moment for Budkov. But honestly, what other seeded player would you want to have that moment against? Like, what other top 10 seeded player would you want to have that moment against this week? I feel like Medvedev's got to be the guy that you would want to play. He doesn't hit that aggressively, so he's not going to rope balls and push you off the court. This is a really tough matchup for me. I think number one, given the fact that I wasn't able to watch Budkov play, so I think that's why I'm struggling a little bit here. But I'm gonna go with experience here. I think it's gonna be Medvedev. I think he's got a nice draw. I mean, potentially he wins that. Then he takes on Cobolli and Vallejo. We know Cobolli's maybe on his last leg. He looked really strong today, though, against Cobolli. But I think there's some opportunity here for Medvedev, at the very least, to get out to the quarters. Maybe push some of these guys. But I'm going to go Medvedev to advance here. Somebody's telling me it's going to be 3 sets. I'm going to say it's going to be 2 tough sets. Let's go Medvedev in straights. Next match is Vallejo against Cobolli. Vallejo able to get through Lerner Tien, and this match didn't surprise me. A 6-4, 6-3 win over Tien, and again, Tien not hitting the ball bad, very similar to what we talked about with Nakashima, not hitting the ball bad, but just once that movement gets exposed, Vallejo able to get a lot of balls back, hit his heavy topspin. That's when the errors start to creep in a little bit, and the doubt kind of creeps in with your belief of how you play on the surface. And I just felt like, watch Lerner Tien, watch him slide. It just looks so uncomfortable when he does it, comparing it to some of these guys who have been on the clay their whole lives. So Vallejo able to get a 6-4, 6-3 win. And let's not forget that he was the favorite, the odds maker's favorite here to win that match, which definitely shows you how much faith they have in Lerner to win these clay court matches. I still think Lerner's got a ton of room to improve here on the clay, and I think he can do it. He's got that lefty game. His ball can bite off the court. He has the ability to be a lethal clay quarter. He's just got to be able to kind of work with what he has and to kind of develop that on the clay and get that trust in his movement. And that's something that hopefully Michael Chang's going to be able to work on with him going into these next few years. Cobolli able to get through Cobolli, and this was a really entertaining match. And just like with Rublev, Shelton, and Feast, we wanted to see the energy. What were we going to get from Cobolli having just lost a tough match to Shelton? Was he going to come in motivated, or was he going to come in tired and just say, like, I'll come in and play, but I guess I'll just focus on Rome. My body's not ready. He came in and played a great match. I was surprised that Cobolli was able to get a set off of him with the caliber of tennis that Cobolli was playing. He was just roping his forehand and hitting so many clean shots. And that to me is kind of like the big thing for him. I was watching that and I was like, how did Cobolli win this set? Just really great grit from Cobolli to win that. But you saw, like it was waiting. It was like a dam waiting to burst. Cobolli was just coming at you with shot after shot after shot. And finally we saw, a 6-1 second set and then a 6-4 third set with a late break and Cobolli able to hang on and win that set 6-4. But that forehand of Cobolli was rocking today. So good things to see from him there. It didn't look like there was much fatigue from Cobolli, so I'll be interested to see how he looks next. But it does kind of feel like the ball is sitting up a little bit for him to hit, and that makes him extremely lethal. If he gets a nice clean look at that forehand, it's going to be past you before you even know it. Cobolli's coming in. He's 6-2 on the clay, 15-6 last year, 10-9 the year before. Vallejo, on the other hand, is 25-6 on the clay, 49-24 last year, 26-23 the year before. Vallejo was able to get through qualifying, beating Martinez and Roca, then beating Dimitrov in the first round and Lerner Tien in the second round. Cobolli, as we had mentioned before, is coming off that Munich loss in the finals to Shelton, but he was able to notch wins over Darderi, Bergs, Kopcheva, and Alexander Zverev. So he's got to be booming a little bit more with confidence here against guys like Vallejo. I think this is a big opportunity for Cobolli to get out here. Similarly to Medvedev, we'll have to see how Cobolli looks here with the body recovering after that 3-setter against Cobolli. How is he going to look a couple days later? Is he going to come out all wrapped up, or is he going to be ready to go? I think that's going to answer our question for how we should approach Cobolli in the French Open as well. But for now, guys, I got to pick the guy that's going to have the biggest shot on the court, and that's going to be Cobolli with his forehand. So I think it's going to be Cobolli in straight sets. And this next match is going to be our coin flip match of the day. Neither of these guys really look too good. They just played two guys that aren't very good on the clay. Khachanov able to get through Walton. Walton had some nice flashy shots redirecting the ball of Khachanov, but we saw Khachanov come out. He's trying to dictate with the forehand. He's trying to hit a few more winners, and that worked. That worked against Walton, but for me, there were just way too many errors in that match for Khachanov to be counted in, maybe to make a deep run here in the quarter. And for some reason, I couldn't remember what the draw was, but I watched Khachanov and Mensik, and I was like, okay, whoever those guys are playing, I'm going to pick that guy, because I don't think either of these guys are going to advance. I didn't think they played that well. Both got through in straight sets, but I just don't think either of them played well. And, of course, they're now playing each other, so someone's going to go even farther. Mensik able to get a nice win over Martin Dam. We talked a little bit about Martin Dam able to have a pretty nice return and take that return aggressively. I was impressed in his first round match with how well he returned. And today, he did not return well at all. Mensik only served about 60%, but he won almost 90% of first serve points. So that's huge for Mensik against Martin Dam. And I felt like Mensik was holding with relative ease and able to just put that pressure on Dam every single time. A lot of break points for Mensik before he was able to convert and get that 3-4 win. But gotta credit to Dan. He was able to find some surplus one. He was able to come into net. So that game doesn't really work too much on the surface, but just it's good to see him kind of trusting in himself and knowing what he has to do to get the job done. Let me take a look. Let's look at the this matchup here between Khachanov and Mensik. And guys, again, like I really just think both Mensik and Khachanov did not play clean matches. I get it, they're in straight sets, but if you watch, you're like it's not good tennis, like good looking tennis. There's just a lot of errors. Um, and their opponents just force a few too many errors themselves. Looking at this head-to-head, it is 2-0 for Khachanov. Khachanov getting a win in 2024 in Doha, 7-6, 6-4. That was 14-12 in the first set breaker. Wild. That was the finals. And then in 2025, second round of Indian Wells, Khachanov was able to beat Mensik 3-6, 6-0, 6-3. And we all remember the next week in Miami, Mensik able to go on and win that entire tournament. So he was playing at a good level there, and Khachanov able to beat him. Khachanov coming in, he's 1-2 on the clay. Just got his first win on the clay against Walton. Khachanov 9-6 last year, 8-4 the year before. Hasn't had a losing season since 2021. Mensik, on the other hand, is 1-0 on the clay with that Martin Dam win. 6-5 last year, 6-4 the year before. Hasn't lost a clay court match since 2021. This is going to be a tough match because I like the way that Mensik plays. I just don't know if it's really suited for clay. Khachanov having that 2-0 head-to-head too has got to weigh on you a little bit. I'm going to take Mensik here to advance. I think it's going to be a three-setter no matter what. But I really thought the Khachanov errors just keep sticking in my mind. So I'm going to take Mensik to advance in 3. Last match on the board is Zverev against Terence Atmane. And this one's going to be a very tricky match. Terence Atmane looking extremely strong in the lefty battle against Humbert. Atmane just able to find that lefty forehand, and it was on full display today, roping balls past Humbert and just being able to dictate and control the middle of the court with that forehand. I just like the fact that, the clay, obviously the ball's going to move a little bit slower than it would on a hard or an indoor hard court. So Atman has time to step around and make some plays with that forehand. And that's exactly what he's going to try to do against Zverev. Zverev, on the other hand, had a tough three-setter against Navoni. And honestly, guys, that didn't surprise me. Navoni is such a gamer. He really does make some good adjustments. You see, loses the first set 6-1, makes some adjustments, able to win the second set 6-3. But Zverev just kind of upped his level a little bit, upped the serving numbers a little bit, and he's able to win that next set 6-3 in the third. Now Zverev takes on Atman, and I'm very curious to see how Zverev is going to be able to neutralize this giant forehand from Terence Atman. These guys have not played in their careers. Zverev's coming in. He's 7-2 right now on the clay. It's like a quiet 7-2, right? It doesn't really feel like he's won that many matches just yet. But he is 7-2 on the clay, 18-7 last year, 23-6 the year before. Terence Atman 3-2 on the clay, 3-4 last year, 5-5 the year before. I'm unable to get through Khachanov and Humbert, two very tricky opponents with very different styles, and I'm unable to beat both of them. That's a good accomplishment for him. Zverev getting through that tough three-setter against Naboni, as we mentioned. Zverev did have a head-scratching loss to Cobolli in Munich. This was the Zverev home tournament. He had been serving well most of the week, and he just drops a straight set loss to Cobolli. Cobolli obviously playing extremely good tennis, but you gotta think Zverev being a top 4 guy should be able to find ways to win a match like that, or at least force a third set. I'm gonna pick Zverev here, but I'm gonna do it extremely cautiously, guys. I think this could be an upset here. We just haven't. I have not seen like a very big notable win for Terrence Atmane. He did beat Felix in Miami, which is a very solid win. But on the clay, you look at like Ethan Quinn. Okay, he's supposed to beat him. He beat him. Etcheverry. Sorry about that. So yeah, Terrence Atmane, Monte Carlo beats Ethan Quinn in straight sets. Okay, that's expected. Plays Etcheverry, loses in 3. Plays Arthur Fils. That's Arthur Fils' first match on the clay. Atmane with match points, loses that match, then beats Khachanov, beats Humbert, and now comes out against Zverev. And this is usually the match where it's going to be a 3-setter for Atmane. Atmane's probably going to take a set, but he's not going to be able to convert and win the match itself. So give me Zverev to advance in 3. Here's a look at Zverev's quarter of the draw with my round of 16 picks. This draw is really going to be up for grabs here, guys. I gotta favor Zverev a little bit. I want to see how Cobolli looks now coming off that win over Cobolli, that 3-set win. Vallejo's going to push him. He's going to make him play a few longer rallies, but I think the Cobolli forehand's going to dictate, and then Cobolli can do the same exact thing against Medvedev as well. We know Medvedev not too comfortable on the clay, doesn't really prefer this type of surface. So if Cobolli's able to advance there, we get that rematch of Zverev and Cobolli. We got Cobolli basically on like one leg, probably getting to this quarter. So maybe Zverev's going to be able to get the revenge that he's been looking for to make it out to the semifinals. I give it maybe like a 60-40 chance for Zverev to make it out or Cobolli to make it out. So let me know what you guys think. Post your picks in the comments. And here's a look at our final second round records. We shaped up a little bit with an 11-5 day today for the bottom half of the draw picks. Hopefully we can match this record in the third round. And as always, guys, thanks again for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share your picks in the comments. Share the video. We will have a video out for every single day of the Madrid Masters, recapping and talking about the picks coming up. So look out for those to keep up on everything tennis. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.